Hey yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Brainwashed to be Broke series. Today guest is somebody who actually helps startups, businesses to grow and like people who are starting businesses to start their businesses and helping them with marketing, social media and so on. But before we gonna jump into the interview and so on, I also want to mention that this show is all about these brainwashing stories, brainwashing patterns, what we are basically taught since our young age, and that keeps us stuck in this type of environment where we cannot, like when we think that we cannot do anything out of the box basically. And most people, they are not actually lacking some talents, or most of the time not even skills. They just lack of the belief in themselves and actually doing something that somebody else is capable of, but not really, they don't believe that they can actually do something like that. So without further ado, I'm super pumped to have another amazing guest over here, and we're gonna start with the first question, and that is, who are you, Matt, and how did you get into entrepreneurship? And yeah.
Okay, well, Adam, thank you for having me here today. I'm looking forward to this interview. My name is Matt Rudisill, and I am in North Carolina, United States, and have been a business coach for almost 30 years. I got started in this through a class that I had in college. I was at the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia, and I was taking a course or a class called entrepreneurship. And we had to get with a few other people in the class and develop a business, an idea, and write a plan and present it to people. And I started working with these two other guys, and they were great for about a day. They were difficult to work with, but I think that put something in my mind that if I want to get things accomplished, I kind of have to do them on my own. So we worked together for about 45 days, developed a business, a great business idea, got an A in the class, did well, moved on. I signed away all my rights to that company. Now those guys are probably sitting on an island somewhere reaping the benefits of that company because it was a top notch deal. Um, but I'm not disappointed in that. I'm happy because sometimes we have to forego the riches, so to speak, in order to have the clarity that we need to move our life forward. So that kind of progressed me in knowing that I wanted to do something on my own
Mhm.
and I wanted to be able to build a business. And I kind of had the mindset for it then. Fast forward a few years, got out of college, started working with a community college. In North Carolina, we have 58 community colleges. And I started working with one of those because I just needed a job. I needed
Mhm.
something to do. And I walked into the office of this small business center director one day and I said, I need something. What can I do? And she asked me if I could teach. And I
Mhm.
said, of course. Of course I can teach. I have no idea. I've never taught anything to anybody really in my life. But I had this outline that I had used in that college class. And I pulled the outline out and I started looking at it and I'm like, I could teach people how to write business plans and how to start businesses. And I remember distinctly in the second class that I had. I mean, I was just kind of getting my feet wet. I was nervous, didn't know what I was doing. I had one guy in the class who said, I'm ready to start this business. I need direction. So we went outside. It was a beautiful day. This was probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Went outside and just threw all this information on top of his hood to his car. And we literally built his business in the parking lot for an hour. And I thought, wow, this is fun. I had a
Mhm.
great time doing it. And then I got to see him be successful. And we were friends for a good many years. Unfortunately, he passed a couple of years ago. But that led me to helping other entrepreneurs. And since that time, I've been able to work with over 16,000 students.
Mhm.
I couldn't even believe it myself. I did a little math about a year ago, or maybe about 6 months ago, and I'm like 16,000 people that I've worked with in almost 28 to 30 years, and through that have launched a little over 115 companies,
Mhm.
and they're all different. They're not all my companies, but I've had the pleasure of helping somebody else build their dream and their passion, and that's been what's been fun to me. Not to mention, at the same time, there's lots of perks of entrepreneurship. I got into entrepreneurship to begin with to have time freedom. I had I had two young children, and I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure I did things with them. I went to their field trips. I went to their sporting practices. As a matter of fact, I coached most of their sports teams, and just use some of that passion I use with entrepreneurs to kind of build up these young people as well. So I truly love the title,
Mhm.
because a lot of times that's the way we are raised.
Mhm.
That's what we know. But once you break out of that and you start seeing people benefit from some of the things that you help them with or you teach them, it changes your whole mindset completely. Not to say that, entrepreneurship is not a roller coaster. It is a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. I'm going through personally right now a little bit of a down, um, you know, on the roller coaster ride. I don't really know why. I just know it's preparing me for something better and
Mhm.
better in the future. And not that anything bad is really happening. It's just that I'm not teaching as much this year as I have in the past. It just seems like a lot of that kind of dried up a little bit,
Mhm.
and I know that if it does dry up, there's something else,
Mhm.
right behind it that's there. I just have to be patient and wait for it. And I remember a teacher I had back in well, it was high school, who said, "No one's going to do it for you.
Yep. Yeah.
You just have to
100.
do it yourself." And I'll always remember that, because that is the mentality that that you have to have as an entrepreneur. Plus the fact entrepreneurs get to dream. They get to see a lot of
So true.
exciting things that maybe people haven't thought about before. So in a nutshell, that's the last probably 30 years. A little bit about me personally is that I live on a family farm that I grew up on. Moved away for a few years and came back, which is great. I have a, wonderful wife and several kids. My wife is a full-time entrepreneur, which is
Awesome.
fantastic.
Interesting.
She's a baker, and probably supplies, I don't know, a 50, 60-mile radius of our home with her baked goods. I mean, it's
That's awesome.
fantastic. She does a fantastic job. And a I have two 20-year-old, or 20 in their 20s kids, and then I have a 10-year-old. So my spectrum is just wide open. It's just all over
Awesome.
the place.
Love it. So when you start talking about kids and so on, with the circumstances and everything, like what you went through your whole life and so on, like in a business side, and like have you been even like working in corporate job at all, or you just literally jump into entrepreneurship straight up?
I worked in a corporate job probably right at 30 years ago. That was the
Mm-hmm.
last time. So I'm a lot older than you. I'm 53. Not quite 53. I'll be 53 here in a couple of months.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say that
but
actually.
um,
Okay.
so I guess that would have been when I was in my 20s, young 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for a big furniture company. And actually, that helped, believe it or not, my entrepreneurship journey anyway, because when I worked in that company, I did pretty much customer service training for them,
Right. Yep.
which allowed me to go out and train the other 20 some customer service agents that we had across multiple campuses and stuff. And it allowed me to start really thinking about, you know, doing some of this on as a full-time business.
Mm-hmm.
After that, after that, I started a retail store. I did
Mm-hmm.
embroidery and screen printing for a good while and made some good connections there and basically sold retail, but also worked the wholesale side of that business. A lot of my customers were actually my competitors in the community, which was pretty cool. You know, because when they would do something, you would realize that hey, you probably did it for them. You know, which was nobody else knew that, but it was kind of cool to know. Um, so I ran that company for a good many years, and then I went and worked with a program that was actually a federal program here in the United States, and it was through a grant. So unfortunately, with grants and federal money, that money dries up just as fast as it comes out, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. So the program lasted about a year on the federal side, and then our state took it over. And just to kind of give you an idea of what this program was, it was called Growing America Through Entrepreneurship, a GATE as
Mm-hmm.
short. And we helped people. This was in the late 2000s, maybe around 2010, 11, and 12. We helped people who had lost their job or their business. Maybe their job had went somewhere else, went overseas or whatever, and we helped them start their own business. And it was
Mm-hmm.
a huge benefit to them because in the States, we have, I don't know what it's called now, but it used to be called the Unemployment Commission, Security Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And it would allow people that lost their job to receive, you know, a little bit of funding, kind of like unemployment insurance is what it basically is,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of funding to help them stay on their feet. Well, the problem with that situation is that if anybody ever decided that they were going to start their own business, you know, maybe in the middle of being unemployed, you can't find a job anywhere, so you say, "Well, I'll just start my own." Well, then their benefits go away.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know how hard that would be? You know,
Yeah.
I'm relying on these benefits, and now I tell them I want to start my own business, which is a good thing, so I can get off the benefits, but they're going to cut my benefits off immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the good news with the GATE program that I worked with is I was able to kind of go in as an intermediary and say, these guys need to keep their benefits. I
Mm-hmm.
had I had federal approval to get them to keep their
Yeah.
benefits. And then the state, you know, said, sure, we'll do that for a couple more years. And with that program, I was able to work with lots of entrepreneurs, launch lots of businesses for them, get these people off unemployment and, you know, into making, you know, their own dreams come true with their own business and not relying on somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the passion really just like shot into second gear. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, wow, this is a huge benefit. And and since that time, I just started um really going out to a lot of different colleges. Like I said earlier, there's 58 community colleges here in North Carolina. I have probably taught in about 30 of them over the years. And most of the time, I contract with them to do consulting of their clients and to teach their seminars. So I've been doing that for a good while. As a matter of fact, I've got a seminar coming up this evening, right after this interview, and and it's on e-commerce. So I'm teaching people how to build, you know, a Shopify store and things like that. Um, which you know, it's all been fun. It's all been you know great fun. A couple years ago, I kind of got involved with a coach. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's really funny that over the years I have coached other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had coaches that I've worked with that have coached, you know, golf stars, PGA Tour stars. I've worked with baseball, you know, different coaches, but I've never. really decided, hey, I need to do this for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and how important that was.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mentioned earlier that my wife is a baker. She's got a coach,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not me. I help her a little bit when I can, but she's got a coach who's been on the Food Network.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people in her little mastermind, I think there's about 8 or 9 of them, are
Wow.
all big time chefs. And then my wife is just the baker in the group, and stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. You just meet with them every week. This is just perfect.
Yep.
So I went out and hired a coach a few years ago and worked with them for about a year. It really helped fast track a lot of
Yep.
my mental game.
Mm-hmm.
It helped move me forward with what I plan to do online. I haven't got it completely set up yet, but I do have a portal with some of my classes on there. In the past, I've always just taught one-off classes and just taught it to, whoever shows up through the college. But now I'm starting to build a community online where I'm able to send people to and let them go through the process of, here's what you do, here's what you do next and next and next. And just kind of help them along the way, because not only have I kind of been there and done that with my own businesses, the retail, the online. I've done real estate. I've got a real estate company right now, but I've also helped almost any type of business that you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to pull some of those skills out and assist other people with those, so they don't kind of make some of the mistakes that I've made along the way. And I think that's what most entrepreneurs enjoy doing. They enjoy kind of helping people avoid the pitfalls that they've had. And one of the big ones is the way that we're raised, brainwashed to be broke, right? you know, um, a lot of times our mental state comes from who we surround ourselves with, and I
100%.
and I and I have to deal with that as a coach, because I'm like, just remember, your family loves you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to get hurt. They don't want to see you fail. They want to see you succeed. So that's why they're negative about your business idea.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, as an entrepreneur, we have to block off, our surroundings. We have to almost get in that hermit cave of our own to not hear those loving, kind words that
Yeah.
we hear that are actually negative
Yeah.
to hurt. So we have to avoid that stuff, and that's where it's so tough. And that's where working with lots of different businesses over the years has been so beneficial, because I'm able to say, but wait, these guys did this. You can do this too. You just have to change that mindset a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know I kind of rambled on just a little bit, but that's
You're
that's kind
good.
of in a nutshell what I've done over the years, and just why I truly enjoy
Love it.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Totally. So when it comes to, when we've been, when we, the question that I wanted to ask is, you said you have 3 kids, right? How did you let them since, and raise them since, you know, um, when they basically start? You said they're around 20s right now, right?
So
So how do you
I
raise
have
them to be prepared basically on that, like, what the world is actually all about right now, and how the whole, because like when we see, the schooling system and everything what is going on that side, it's completely like it's broken, and it's like literally training people to be obedient and like,
Mhm.
under control and so on. Did you have something like, because for example, I've been raised in that way that follow this path. This is the path that everybody goes through. Did you give them like more opportunities, like different ways, show them all the ways that they can go, or like have you been more on the side of the business, or like they can decide?
As a parent,
Mm-hmm.
um, you hope that you did. You hope
Mm-hmm.
that you did well. Um, sometimes you don't see that immediately, and maybe you see it through some of their actions and stuff.
Mhm.
So just to kind of let you know, I have two kids that are in their 20s. They're
Mhm.
older,
Mhm.
um, and both of them are actually very entrepreneurial. But at the same time, they're still struggling because they're young with the fact of security.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they both have other jobs that they work for other people, but they both have a lot of entrepreneurial tendencies to
Mhm.
them. They
Mhm.
could take what they're doing right now and run with it and be their own boss. They could easily do that. Both of those kids grew up with the internet, but there was also a lot of not as much of a mobile society like we
Mhm.
are
Yep.
now.
Mhm.
They both, I think they probably got cell phones when they were 11 or 12, and they weren't on them all the time. There were some video games there, but we didn't do that much. They participated in a lot of activities
Mhm.
through sports, through things like scouting programs, church activities, and I felt like they were raised, very, very well, knowing that they could pretty much do anything that they wanted to do. And seeing them as they grow up older and seeing the fact that they're kind of doing that makes me happy, but I don't think you might not ever see the true reality, until later on. Now, on the other side, I have a 10-year-old, and this 10-year-old, everything is mobile, everything is digital, everything is internet based or YouTube based, um, and that is probably the biggest challenge that I see right now with a 10-year-old.
Mhm.
Um, Plus the fact that I'm a lot older
Mhm.
raising a 10-year-old, as whereas before, I was in my 20s raising these kids, and now I'm in my 50s. So I've changed a good bit over the years. Unfortunately, I'm not as agile, and I'm not as as in shape as maybe I was before. But I think the world is completely different today,
Mhm.
and there's a lot more outside interference, I guess. And this could come from another child. This
Mhm.
could come from a school environment. It could come from a lot of different things. And I think it's twice as hard
Yeah.
to raise kids today.
Have you homeschooled them, or have you been
No,
have you just
no,
no
public school,
public school? Yeah.
and I've thought about homeschooling. I
Mhm.
really have. I
Mhm.
know. I listen to you probably know Grant Cardone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I listen to Grant Cardone a good bit. He homeschools his kids
Mhm.
and just takes them all over. I'm in a little bit different position than he is. Obviously, he can fly them wherever he wants to go. Um, but um, but homeschooling is quite a challenge.
Mhm.
There's a lot of work that goes into that. Some people are more capable of doing that than others.
Mhm.
Um, I have always been able to work around the clock, but also take off around the clock too, so I don't have a set schedule with everything. And with homeschooling, it would have to be a little more rigid.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm not saying I won't ever do it, but that's kind of the way it is right now. I just think it's a little bit different to raise kids today than it was 15, 20 years ago. And it's I don't know if it's harder, but it's definitely different and
Mhm.
stuff. And you hope that one day, to get back to the initial question, you hope that one day, some of the things that you have said and done kind of rub off on them. I did learn, for any other parents out there listening, I did learn that pushing things is not a good option.
Mhm.
And and I'm into business. I'm into entrepreneurship, but if I ever tried to push that on my kids, that would probably be a huge deterrent.
Yeah.
I just tried to let it be there, and kind of show some of the benefits of it. And if they ask, tell them why I did certain things. And then starting to see some of their, their movement towards entrepreneurship. So hopefully it will work. But no, I've tried my best not to push anything
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense,
other than the fact that they can be whatever they want to be.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
100%.
they have that ability.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's way better to like um it's gonna be for sure for me it's gonna be the same way. I want to just show them the different ways and different possibilities than not just being
Mhm.
employed and so on. So 100%, I'm with you on that. And it's really sad and to see actually like when we talking about kids and schooling and so on, how the schooling is basically still in like it's like nothing changed since
Mhm.
I don't know how long ago. Like literally, the same system is literally run, and it's just so crazy to see that people like even now, like with AI and everything, what is going on with AI and like what they are teaching us in a school, and I can see it because from, for example, from the perspective of my girlfriend's brother, he's in a school and he's literally studying the same things that we've been studying in like 20 years ago, which is like
Mhm.
insane. And like they don't even know how, they are not even using AI inside of the school, or they don't teaching them about it. And like they're like AI is gonna like this disrupting the whole world when it comes to like how things are done and how fast you can have everything done. So it's
Mhm.
really interesting. Like I don't know about you, do you like use AI in your stuff, and do you like optimizing for it also, and like even like talking with your kids about it, and like yeah.
That's funny that you
Mm-hmm.
should say that because I had this conversation with my 10-year-old yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and I said, Chat GPT is off limits for
Yep.
you right now because she had got on to my Chat GPT and started asking these questions that she wanted answers to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, it's skewing everything because I put in what I do and they know who I am, and now they're getting all these weird questions. And I had to go in yesterday and I said, listen, I'm sorry for the last two questions that have come in. Please delete those from your memory because they were things that my daughter had put in. One thing I wanted to mention based on our talking with the schools being the same, I feel like the kids, having 20 something year olds and having a 10-year-old, I feel like they were almost born with some kind of innate knowledge of how to use things like the computer or things like the internet or with my 20 something year olds, they knew their way around a pretty good bit. Now, I teach a lot of different things, but yet they were so much better at it than I was.
Mm-hmm.
And now my 10-year-old comes around and she's using things like Canva and ChatGPT and of course what is it, CapCut,
Mm-hmm.
and all these things, and it's just amazing
Mm-hmm.
how good she is at
Mm-hmm.
doing this. So my thought was that a lot of times we feel like there's probably a lot of bad stuff
Mm-hmm.
out there in the world, and there is. There's a ton of bad stuff on YouTube. There's a ton of bad stuff in cartoons, now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like personally, I have to give my kids a little leeway when it comes to some of these programs because that's what's progressing them. That's what they're going to be able to be different
Mm-hmm.
later on. They're not going to be like everybody else. They're going to know how to use these programs. They already do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as parents we have to be careful sometimes that we don't try to squash certain things or take things away just because it might have some dangerous aspects to it.
Yeah.
We have to monitor those dangerous aspects and monitor our kids' usage and basically inform them of the bad things that are out there. But there's so many good things that are also there as well
Mm-hmm.
that we can use. I use Chat GPT all the time. I've used Midjourney some. Um, I need to get more into a lot of the other AI tools that are out there. I feel like I've become comfortable with ChatGPT, but I need to jump into some other things too because it could go away. You
Yeah.
know, it could go away tomorrow. Matter of fact, I think they're getting a little bit of flack over a few things right now as we speak. So
Hmm.
um, I need to become a little more versed in some of those tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Um, but it's so it's so interesting, like how everything is moving so fast, especially like, I remember when I've been starting with
Hmm.
funnels and so on, like completely like geeking on how to write copies, and now like everything can be done in like freaking few seconds, just like because you say AI, hey, like be this type of person, and now like give me this type of, this is my ideal client, or this is the avatar that I'm serving. Can you give me like the whole thing, holy smokes,
Hmm.
and it's like giving you, anyway, it's just insane how everything's going so fast, and like have the speed is also like like big time these days. Crazy,
And I
crazy.
think a lot of people have a little misconception of
Hmm.
AI as well. Obviously, AI can do certain things
Hmm.
for you. And I think some people that I know,
Hmm.
maybe a little bit of a negative comment from time to time, is that, well, that's cheating. You know, you should do it on your own. You can't, you're not really doing it. You're using the computer to do it. And that's not necessarily true. I look at AI as just like a tool. Like I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say years and years ago about, these are just tools. They're markers, they're crayons, they're fax machines, it's just the next level of
Hmm.
technology. Now, 20 years ago, I was teaching in my classes. I pulled this blurb off of something that said it is estimated that in a few years, technology will double every 72 hours. That was 10 years ago. Now technology might double every 72 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And it goes so quick. I feel like as entrepreneurs we have to be there to use these tools. We have to be able to use the tools that are provided because if not, then we probably will get left behind, so to speak. I don't think AI robots are going to take jobs, but I
Hmm.
think the idea of using AI could take jobs,
Yeah.
and that's why people need to be able to use these tools. You
People
know,
using AI, around
yeah,
100%. Yeah. You're gonna
yeah,
basically completely out-influence somebody who is not using AI. If you know how to use AI and you
mhm,
are basically cooking with it like every day, you will be just literally crushing anybody else. Like with the
correct.
results, with the speed and everything. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Let's just say that years ago, I wanted to get information from somebody. Well, here's a great example. When Facebook came out,
Mm-hmm.
how long's Facebook been here? They had the Messenger program on Facebook. It had the little green dots to show that people were online. Well, I was in a position 25, 30 years ago where I talked to probably, this was 30 years ago when I was working in the corporate world in furniture. I would probably talk to 150 people a day. I would receive over 100 emails from my customers, our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I would find that I would play phone tag with them. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I would call, "Hey, Adam, sorry I missed you today. Can you call me back?" Well, guess what? You're going to call me back and you're going to hear, "Hey, this is Matt. Sorry I missed you today. Can you call me back?" Well, we're going to do this for a couple of days, maybe a week. But now I see that little green dot over here on Facebook and I send you a quick note and you answer me just like that. We don't have to use that. But do you see how much of an advantage that is?
Yes.
I used to tell people that I could work an 8 hour day in 2 hours. I can. All I have to do is use these tools that are available. And that's what AI is today.
Yeah.
It's just a tool. It's not it's not doing something that's crazy. It's just like that fax machine. That fax machine helped people get information. Yes, they could send the snail mail or years ago the Pony Express, but how long did that take?
Yeah.
And that's what AI does today. But it does grow so much faster. And I think that's where it scares people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But also, when when people are jumping into businesses because like you are helping, startups to grow and so on. What you can see the biggest challenges usually those people have, and like how you would help them to overcome them so they are on the
Mhm.
right track.
This this is why you need a coach. This is why you need somebody like Adam or myself. We can bounce ideas off of each other. A lot of times when you're in a business, I think that's that old saying is that you can't see the forest for the trees. And that's what happens. You get in a position and you're in the trenches, you're down in the middle of all this, and you can't find a way out. But a coach looks at it from outside and he's like, "Oh, just here's the door. Here's the path." And I think that's the biggest benefit that I think I've seen over the years is that when I say, "Well, why don't you do this?" and it's like a big light bulb goes off in their head. Oh my gosh, I never saw that. And that's what a coach really does. So that's a simple answer to that question, but I think that is the biggest key is that sometimes as an entrepreneur you get yourself into this position, but it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur, it could be anybody. You get yourself in this position where you can't see outside of your wheelhouse,
Yeah.
and that's why we're somebody else. A lot of people say mental health counseling is such
Mhm.
a great tool. Well, that's why, because you can't get out of your head and you need somebody else to help you.
So
Yeah.
when it comes to strategies, let's say,
Hmm.
let's give something at least the audience like some 1 to 2 steps that they can take to get like for example start moving some stuff. So when it comes to the strategies, what do you think that most people are lacking to be able to start making money online actually?
I think a lot of people think that it has to be new,
Hmm.
that it has to be a new idea or a new way of doing things. And we've heard the saying, "Don't reinvent the wheel."
Hmm.
If it was a square, it wouldn't roll. It needs to be that way on purpose. I don't know who said this originally, but you've heard it before too. Success leaves clues, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you have to look for. You have to look for these clues, and that is the number one way to get started in anything that you want to start, whatever kind of business it is. More than likely, somebody else has done something similar to it. Now, if it's the Rubik's Cube or some kind of new invention, you know, but still, there was something similar to that in the past.
Mhm.
Success does leave clues. Look what other people have done. Model yourself out. Now, don't steal their stuff. That's always a bad thing. Don't steal, but model. And I try to help all of my clients find something to model,
Mhm.
whether it be a website that they really like or that they find is easy to navigate. Well, that's what your website needs to look like. If you find that the artwork, in the background makes you feel better, well, don't have some dreary, drab office. Put something fun in there, and stuff, and just make it conducive to what you feel like is going to benefit you.
Mhm.
And I think that's the number one strategy. And the number two strategy is don't let setbacks stop you,
Ooh, that's so big. Yeah, this is big one actually.
because we all have them. We
Mhm.
all have setbacks. I don't know how many people I've heard that say, don't publish for 30 days and think it doesn't work. Wait until you do it for a year or two and then let me know. And that's hard. That is super duper hard to make sure you publish, and
I
like
don't
you're
know.
doing great
Yeah,
with this
I don't know.
podcast.
I don't know who said that actually. This
Mhm.
this reminder, literally, that what you just said. I don't know who said that, but I think it was Russell Bronson or somebody.
I've
that
heard him say that. I've heard Russell say
yeah,
it. I've also
yeah.
heard,
With the
um,
podcast stuff, do you remember? It was like go and start a podcast and like do an episode. I don't know, 2 weeks or something like that. A month? No, no, it was episode a week or so. I'm not sure exactly. And do not like and don't tell me to like don't come here like year ago or year after and do not tell me that your life that didn't change or
that's
something
right.
like that. You know what I mean? And this is like one of
Well,
the ways that, and I'm literally a proof of that because like I did it. I literally started. Let's say now it's like about 9 months ago, and it's completely crazy. Like I have never thought that this is possible.
I'll give you another real life example for me. About a year ago, um, I mentioned earlier that my wife has a coach,
Yep.
and it's a team. They meet every week, and about a year ago, somebody in that group, I don't know if it was the lady that leads it or who, they challenged everybody else to find a social media platform and post something every single day on that platform. And a lot of the people in that group weren't doing it, but my wife decided to do it. So her Facebook is her business page is tied in with my page as well, because I think I'm the one who set it all up originally. So I get these notes from Facebook every now and then that say, "Congratulations, your business has grown by this amount this year or this month or whatever." So 1 month after she had done that for a month, I got a note that said, "Congratulations, your business has grown by 140%." Okay, that sounds good. But then right behind it, there was another note. It said, "Congratulations." And it was talking about my wife's business. "Your business has grown by 14,000% this month." And I'm like, what? And that is reality because of how we do things. We can't
Yeah.
just half-ass it. So sorry to speak like that, but we can't. We have to just do it full force. Even Alex Hermosi,
Yeah.
one of the great marketers today. I think it was in his first book. He said that he was talking to a mentor of his,
Mhm.
and he told him, he said, "Well, why don't you just go out and put flyers on these cars,
Mhm.
and just send out so many flyers." And Alex did, and he waited and waited and didn't get any responses, and called his mentor about a week later, and he said, "Listen, this is not working. Why in the world is it not working for me?" And I'm probably butchering some of the numbers, but he said, "Well, how many flyers did you put out?" And Alex
Mhm.
said, "About 250." And he said, "Well, that's a good start. How many days did you do that?" He said, "Well, that was total." And his mentor said, "Alex, I'm doing like 500 flyers a day.
Mm.
Do that for a month. Do 500 flyers a day. And then at the end of the month, come back and talk to me and let me know if it worked or not." So Russell Brunson probably did say that about the podcast. I've heard Steve Larson say that,
Yeah, too. Yeah. Yeah.
kind of in the same arena.
Mhm.
I find it very important, but I also find it very hard to do, very
Mhm.
challenging. So, I'm not some big, great entrepreneur. I have struggles with this too, like everybody else does. It's challenging, but if you do it, you will find, I think, great reward,
Oh,
whether
100%.
it's posting,
Yeah.
podcasting, um, working 10 minutes on something new. You know, I always I always found it interesting that I've taught goal setting
Uh-huh.
to a lot of clients, and every time I would go to a class, I would have like a piece of paper, and I would fold it up and I would carry it with me to every single class, and I did this over the course of like 8 years.
Mhm.
And about a year after I would write down my goals. I would ask the students to do this while I'm doing it at the same time too. I'm writing down these goals. And then the next year I go through and I'm like, oh, I've already done this. I've done all these things
Yeah.
subconsciously. Didn't even know that I had completed those tasks, and they're gone. So I keep a to-do list, a running tally on my computer. It's a to-do list, and it's got a ton of stuff on it. And I go through like every week or two and just start marking stuff off. And when you mark stuff off a to-do list, it does something for you mentally.
Mm,
It just basically says, here you go. There's your step. Let's get to the next one.
yeah.
And it's like a reward,
Hmm.
So I find, great opportunity in doing things over and over and over and over again
Yeah.
until it works.
100%. There is not such a thing as a failure unless you
Mhm.
give up, basically. Unless that's what like literally you're saying.
I
So
think
it's
that was Einstein who said that, right? Or yeah,
mm,
Einstein said that um, he had not failed 200 and some times. He just found 200 and some times ways not to make the light bulb.
oh yeah, yeah.
Something
Exactly. So
like that.
there was multiple ways. Those people like usually like entrepreneurs when it comes to like huge successes, they have completely different like point of view on the thing that they do or so on. Like they are not seeing risk there at all. Like it's literally like and also like Alex Hormozzi always saying like most of the time when I listening his stuff, he's also saying like that you're gonna suffer in every area of your life. It doesn't
Mm,
matter. Like in each in which you like it doesn't matter what way you're going to go, you always gonna suffer. So it's better to take the way that you like to like do you want to take and have the biggest reward because you're gonna suffer anyway. So
mm.
it actually has the price to suffer for, or the reward to suffer for. You know what I
Yeah, that
mean?
makes sense.
So cool. Um, And also, like, I wanted to ask you because you mentioned that you are collecting cards, like the sports
Mm,
cards. Why,
yeah.
where does this come from? Like, how did you get into it?
So I collect like sports cards and like cards like this. And I got involved in sports cards as a kid,
Hmm.
and it's really funny because it it reminds me a lot of connection with my father because I played a lot of sports growing up, baseball and basketball and things like that. And I remember after a practice or after a game, we'd stop off at the local convenience store and go in and get a pack of cards. I mean, he would buy me a pack of cards, and I was like, wow, this is pretty fun. So I started collecting a little bit, and then maybe around 10 or 11, 12, 13, I started making some of my own money because I think I told you I grew up on a farm and I live on a farm now. So there's things I could make money with. And I would take some of that money and I would spend it on baseball cards or
Hmm.
basketball cards and got involved in it and just really enjoyed it. But then let it sit for a good many years. And um, about a year ago, in January, I went to this card show. I had never been to a card show before, and there were so many people there, and there were so many vendors, and I just had a great time. And I'm like, I've got to get back into this. So I started buying a few cards, and then it got to the point to where I'm thinking, well, I'm buying too many cards. I probably need to sell some of these cards. Because the last thing I want to do is if something were to happen to me,
Uh-huh.
that my wife would have to come in and say, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all this?" You know, well, sports card industry is huge right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
The value on sports cards has shot up like a rocket.
Mhm.
Sports cards are selling for millions of dollars.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, there was a Pokemon card
Oh yeah,
that was owned by Jake Paul that just went at auction for over $16 million.
that's crazy.
And now Kevin O'Leary, who, if you've ever watched the show Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary
Hmm.
is one of the investors there.
Yep.
He's got a basketball card. I think it's got Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan on it. I'm not sure, but he's got a basketball card that he says is worth over $20 million. Um, and now he's wearing it around his neck with this little diamond encrusted thing. So sports cards is a huge industry right now. Plus, it's kind of like being a business coach
Mm-hmm.
because when I go out to these sports card um, shows and I'm a vendor at these shows, I've started to see that people come and they recognize me. Oh, I saw you here. I saw you at
Mm-hmm.
this. And then we talk a little bit about the industry, or I help them a little bit with their collection or their business. So it's kind of the same mentality. It's just as fun as being a business coach. But I have gotten to where, and I'm kind of looking around a little bit. You can't see what's
Yeah.
around me,
How many? How
but
many? How many you collected already? Actually.
personally, I probably have personally around somewhere between 250 and 500,000 cards.
It's crazy. Oh my gosh.
However, however, I took a collection on consignment
Uh-huh.
just recently, and my guess is it's close to 1 million cards.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
it will take me an entire year to go through them.
Yeah.
That's how, but I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy. I wish I had some unopened packs here, but I enjoy opening.
Do you have
Here
some?
we go.
Do you have some rare
So,
ones? Do you have some
so I
rare
just
ones
got
actually?
I just
Yeah.
got this box the other day
Yeah.
of these are 2026,
Mm-hmm.
and I just get it at the store and I'll open the packs, and I've got to where I do a little bit of that online as well, which is pretty fun. But that's another side business.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see how that one goes.
That's pretty
It's just
cool.
more fun right now, but it gets to the point to where it's a lot of work as
Mm-hmm.
well
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff.
This is the
But
thing. I see that this is for you like a passion, business and
mhm.
passion, like you mixing it, like putting it together. And I think this is really important also. Like if you're doing a business, people are very harsh on themselves. They always see the negative side and like they never like really, appreciate the work that they've done and all of the sacrifice they've done. So it's really important to have both sides, right? Not just the hustle, but also the reward. And I think like that's what you found in this in those cards. And like collecting those because you like it. This is like your hobby, your passion. So I think this is really cool actually to compensate those two sides. Would you agree on that?
So yes, here would be the third strategy. You asked me
Mhm,
about strategies. Third one would be find something you love
mhm,
and you'll never work a day in your life. You've probably heard that before. It's so true. If it's business, if it's farming, if it's teaching, if it's title search in real estate, I mean whatever it could be. If it's cards, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. You'll just enjoy it so much.
yeah,
So that's why I need the passion.
yeah. Love it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. It was amazing. I have three last closing rapid fire questions that I ask everybody. So let's straight up to them. The first one is, what is the one book that you would recommend to somebody who's starting out that like completely like change the way you've been seeing the world the most, or like change the way that you.
I don't have it. Let's see. Oh, I do have it right here. I don't know if you can see it. .com Secrets.
Mm-hmm.
That is my number one book. Russell Brunson. It's called .com Secrets. I don't have another copy of it because I keep giving them away.
Uh-huh.
Everybody that I work with, I think I give them that book to begin with. Um, it just made me think of business a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's called .com Secrets because you're probably thinking, well, this is all internet based. Well, it's not. It's life. It's
Yeah.
life based, and it makes you think of business a lot differently. You are basically using some of the skills in that in anything you do in life, anything that you find value in. This is a great book to kind of tell you how to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I would say that's one of my favorite books, other than the Bible. I think the Bible's my favorite book, but the .com Secrets is probably a little bit easier read.
Very cool. All right, the second one is, if you could delete one piece of advice from the internet that completely
Mm.
is not serving people at all, what that would be?
I don't know if it's one thing, but maybe you see it a lot of different places, and that is the idea of trying to be like everybody else. I see that with my 10-year-old a lot. Oh, they've got this outfit, or they're wearing this, or they do this. Well, just be yourself. And I
Mhm.
think that's the biggest key there. So, not one place that I've seen a bit of advice, but it's kind of that peer pressure mentality. That needs to probably go away. If you feel passionate enough about something that needs to be done, you need to do it. You
Mhm.
need to not focus on what other people are saying or doing. Don't do something because they've done it. Do it because that's what you want to do.
Mhm.
There's a ton of people who could care less about cards, sports
Yeah.
cards,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I do it because I want to do it.
Yeah.
It's fun, and I think that would be it.
Very cool. Love it. And the last one is, if this would be the last interview you've ever done, what would be the message that you want to leave behind you for the other
Mm.
generations and or people who are trying to change their life?
Wow, that's a great question. And let's hope this is not my last one. Let's hope this is not my last interview. But I am getting older, so we just never know.
No,
Um,
you look great. Don't worry. I think you're gonna be here for for
another
for
50
sure
years,
another
hopefully.
few years for sure. Don't worry.
So, biggest point of advice is kind of what we've been talking about all day. Don't let others create your mindset. Don't let other people determine what you do, what you feel, the way you act. Now, of course, we model ourselves after other people that we feel like are pushing us in the right direction. But just remember that you're the only one that can make that difference. I mean, going back to what my high school teacher told me, she said, um, "You're the only one that's going to make your future."
Hmm.
And sometimes we have to use that as motivation to get out of bed. Sometimes we have to use that as a direction that we need to go in. And don't take it lightly that other people there are out there that can help you, such as coaches and stuff. I think that is a huge benefit, and we're all capable. We're all capable. I think we talked about that before we came online officially today, that we are. You can do anything, almost anything you put your mind to. And if you decide either you can do it or you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah, 100%. That was
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, where people can find you to, help seek for some
Um,
help.
pr- Pretty easy to find me online. I'm on a lot of social, such as Facebook. MattRudisill.com is probably the easiest place to find me out there. Just MattRudisill.com. And anyway, let me know. Let's connect. And I appreciate it today, Adam. Thank you so much for having me here.
Totally. Thank you so much. And for everybody who's listening, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye. Thanks.